Suddenly, everyone began to follow me, the entire room, exiting out into the elevator right behind me, including my father. Gabriel, I know you're angry, but you need to control yourself. This isn't the way to deal with this problem. You know what, Dad? I do respect you, but as I said, I'm not the same kid that I was when I left. Sometimes, you just have to take matters into your own hands, because other people just won't handle it, I said as the elevator lowered down. Packed full at this point. It was a sizable elevator, made to have a high capacity for large numbers of businessmen going to meeting rooms. And at this point, it was packed full. Finally, we reached the floor that Alexander's office was on. Alexander had this office for quite some time. As the company head in charge of weapons development, he had the entire floor operating under him. And as myself and the motley crew, including my father behind me, marched through the cubicles, everyone's attention was very drawn to us. This was not a secret by any measure. All the way to the back of the floor, there was Alexander's office. I pushed my way past a bunch of pencil pushers, bumping into a few of them on my travel as I made my way to the massively oversized office at the end of this floor. Outside of the office was a secretary who saw us approaching and began to stand up, speaking. Mr. Alexander is busy at this point in time. If you'd like to contact him, Mr. Moon, then I can get in touch, she said, as I passed her directly by, opening the doors and waltzing in, to which she quickly tried to follow. Sir, you can't go in. Mr. Alexander is having a meeting, she shouted, as we entered his office. And there, sitting behind a desk with a holographic display of several other men sitting behind desks, was Alexander Fleck. I'm sorry, sir, they just barged in, the assistant shouted, towards Alexander, who looked surprised, very genuinely so. It's no problem. Just go wait outside at your desk. You will not be reprimanded. There appears to be something to do. Something of importance, perhaps? And with this new strange accompaniment. I'm sorry, gentlemen, I will have to speak to you later, he said as he waved his hand and the holographic displays disappeared. Well, what exactly has brought you to my office today? And Michael, I haven't seen you out and about in a while. But what on earth is with those dreadful clothes? I really thought you had better taste than that, Michael. And why do you all look so upset? Has something happened? Who are these people, Raphael? What's going on? Alexander said, standing up behind his desk. I put on my best smile, walking calmly towards the desk. My father looked like he wanted to say something, but for the moment seemed to be staying quiet, examining the situation. It's as if in his heart he knew what he wanted to happen to Alexander, and felt conflicted about whether he actually wanted to stop me or not. Hello, Alexander. It has been a while. Yes, I suppose it has, Alexander replied. Nearly a month now. But what brings you here, Michael? Wearing those clothes? He said, looking me up and down again. Oh, well, it appears that there's a slight misconception, I said, still holding the smile as I placed my hands on the side of his desk. You see, you're still under the false perception that I'm Michael Moon. What? Alexander said, looking at me curiously, as all at once I gripped tightly to the desk and with every bit of might that I had, pressed it, rapidly sliding the desk across the solid stone floor of his office into the window. It shattered the glass, flying out of the window and dropping a very, very long way down. "What in the blazes?" Alexander shouted, but before he could say another word, I was there. I latched my hand onto his throat, and without any other words began to drag him over to the now open window. He looked like he was trying to speak, however, my hand around his throat was making it fairly difficult. So, as I held his body dangling out of the window, I reached out with my other hand, tightly grasping the suit he was wearing. It looked sturdy enough to hold him. As I finally released his throat, and with my other hand, held him out over the edge. "What in the hell are you doing? Michael, stop this!" he shouted at me, wind whipping by, his tie and suit fluttering in the breeze. As the wind whipped into the office, even my hair kicked up. As I reached into the pocket of my jacket, pulling out a pack of cigarettes, and putting one in my mouth, lighting it with the lighter that I had in my pocket, and taking a long drag as I held Alexander over the edge. "Well, as far as your misconception goes," I said, exhaling a cloud of smoke that quickly dissipated into the breeze. "As I said, I'm not Michael Moon. It's me, Alexander. It's Gabrial. You do remember the last time we spoke, don't you?" At that point, the fear that was already beginning to overrun Alexander started to crystallize. All of his questions about this event suddenly being answered, without a single extra word being spoken. Now, as I glared daggers at him, smoking a cigarette, dangling him over the edge, it all became crystal clear to him. "So, you really are back. That is you, isn't it, Gabrial?" he said, staring back at me, clutching at my hand wrapped around him, holding him up by that pretty little suit of his. "So, this is what has become of you. Just some mindless brute. Think you're just going to kill me, is that it?" he said, beginning to grit his teeth, looking down at me angrily. "Yeah, I'd say that's just about the size of it. I mean, we could do things another way, but you're already so conveniently over the edge. I mean, all I really have to do is let go. I suppose I could be bothered not to drop you to your death, under the condition that you, well, open that mouth of yours and actually have something true come out of it. Go to whoever the legal authorities are and confess. Do your bid, and I don't drop you. But honestly, that's not the answer I'm hoping you're gonna give." He still looked at me furiously as he dangled over the edge. His patent shoes, the last solid view he sees before a several 100-foot drop. "You can look down all you want, But in the end, it's not going to change your distance to the ground, Alexander. In the moment, he looked back at me furious, and then smiled and scoffed. Drop me to my death, huh? Nonsense, Alexander said. What? You think I won't do it? Well, I think you haven't thought about it, Alexander replied. Tell me, Gabrial, how much is this vengeance of yours worth? You want me to confess to some sort of crime, yes? Or you'll drop me? That's the deal you're offering? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but none of those are going to be happening today. I don't know where in the hell you've been all these years, but obviously it's not inside of the walls of this city. Here there are laws, order, rule. You think you can just kill me in broad daylight and there'll be no consequences? Think again. If you kill me, then all of the lawyers that work for my private company will begin to expend large assets in your prosecution, and not just yours. Don't forget, I'm a heavy stockholder in biotech. Trying to kill me? It'll be seen as a tactical move from your father. Yes, you may believe that I've done some wrong to you, but what proof do you have of it? Without any evidence, whatever your belief is amounts to nothing. You can claim whatever you want, but my lawyers will see to it that this is seen as an assassination. They'll come after biotech, primarily your mother, your father, and your brother. By the time they're done, there won't be a penny to their names. They'll be out on the streets like rats, scurrying through back alleys looking for garbage to eat. The only real pity is I wouldn't be around to see it. And you would spend the rest of your life in a very heavily guarded prison, unable to go anywhere or do anything for the rest of your days. And even if you evade capture, you're basically exiled. You'd never be able to stay within the walls of the city. You'd either eventually be captured or killed. Seems a shame, doesn't it? Spend all these years, finally make it back here to see your family, only to suddenly be a fugitive, unable to see anyone or do anything, all whilst their lives are destroyed by your actions. And as far as getting me to admit anything, get real. Admitting whatever you want me to admit would be tantamount to the destruction of everything I've worked my entire life, and my father before me, their entire life. Everything my family has worked for generations to build would disappear. Given the option between that and death, I'd choose death easily, especially knowing the consequences that would befall you. So, you offered me a bargain. Now let me counter. You pull me back in, set me down, and for the time being, we can pretend that this was just a simple accident. Some equipment malfunctioned and my desk went out of the window. It won't be equated to an assassination attempt, which would drastically affect your family, wouldn't it? Or you can drop me and see if what I'm saying is a lie first hand, he said with a smile on his face. It sickened me to the pit of my stomach. There was nothing good inside of him. He was completely obsessed with himself. his goals. He'd even sacrifice his life for them. He wasn't going to confess. And the real problem was that I believed him when he said that they'd come after my family. When it comes to businessmen, money is what really matters. If a bunch of lawyers see an opportunity to rob us blind, they'll take it. To hell with the consequences that would befall us. I didn't like it. Not in the least. But, as unfortunate as it was, this bastard had me. I couldn't kill him. At least, not like this. I grit my teeth and spit the cigarette out the window, watching it fly off in the breeze. After which, I reeled Alexander in very closely until he was only a few inches from my face. Congratulations, Alexander. You bought yourself just a little bit more time. You get to live for the moment, I said, glaring at him intensely. But do try to remember, Alexander, I don't always have to be so obvious. Eventually, there'll be an opportunity. Maybe now, maybe a year from now. But eventually, there'll come a time when absolutely no one will be able to tell that I'm the one who killed you. And when that happens, you can kiss your ass goodbye, I said, before flinging him back into the office. He landed on the ground, stumbling to his knees, looking up at me furiously as he got back up, adjusting his suit. Very well. First to the finish, then, he said, glaring at me. You may be excused from my office, and please tell the secretary to phone the repairman on your way out, he said, glaring at us, as I turned around and began to exit the office, everyone around me following suit.